So I was watching a Rhett Shull video the other day, and he was talking about how essentially he was making the case that 5-watt combo amps could do a majority of what guitar players needed to do in their place.
See, I think you can do everything you need to do with a small 5-watt combo amp.
And while I don't want to put words in his mouth, this may be me just projecting onto him, but my insinuation that I took away from it was that, like many of us players, like we have amps that they're just too big for what we truly need in our place, and that's certainly the case for me. He recommended 5-watt amplifiers instead. And this is something that I've been thinking about a lot in conjunction with the video that I did the other day about how I've got way too many guitar pedals, which I know and I like collecting them, but you know, it's something to think about. I was thinking about my Orange 35 RT and like how much problems it's given me, despite the fact that it's not a big amp either. It's only a 30-watt combo amp. And even a 30-watt combo amp is big enough to cause problems with your neighbor and you know, people around you. And you know, in order to get it to sound fairly good, you have to push it a little harder. You know, you have to push it at least a bit above 2.5 to 3. However, there's a reason why I chose the Orange 35 RT, and it's because I wanted a small combo amp that also had an effects loop. And I don't know if you know this, but finding small amplifiers with an effects loop is actually a bit of a challenge. Not every manufacturer has one. You can find them, but they're not super common. So that's the reason why I went with the 35 RT. Originally, I was going to get the Bugera V5 Infinium. And the reason why I didn't get that one, despite the fact that it looks really awesome, is because it didn't have the effects loop. I ended up choosing the Orange 35 RT because it seemed the most accessible and it seemed like the best one to get. However, after watching Rhett Shull's video, I realized that there's probably a lot more 5 watts out there, 5-watt amplifiers than I thought. And there is. However, not all of them are going to have an effects loop. And I did a Google search. I was trying to find a 5-watt amp that does have an effects loop. And Google is worthless nowadays. I don't know what your experiences are, but I couldn't get anything out of it. So I went to ChatGPT and it outputted 5 different amps. Of course, only one of them actually had an effects loop, but I mean, at least it gave me something, right? And it turns out that the Blackstar has a small combo amp called the HT-5R MK2. It's quite a bit more money. It's double the price as the Orange 35 RT, but it's looking like a lot like maybe I should have got this one instead. I mean, it's a lot more money, as I said, and maybe that was a factor at the time. But I think this would have been much better off for what I'm trying to do now. Because, you know, in the journey of getting all this gear and all this stuff, you know, as a guitar player and as a musician, like, of course, we all know we don't need half this stuff, you know? The fun is like collecting it and using it and testing it out and seeing what's up, and also the inspiration that you get when you buy this stuff, you know, because when you get a new amp, when you get a new pedal, you get more excited about using some of this stuff to the point where sometimes a new pedal can be the reason why you create, you know, 3 to 4 new songs or 3 to 4 new projects or whatever it is that you're working on.
Guitar players in the room, I'm about to give you a horrible piece of advice. It's a horrible fable. Guitar players love buying what's called effects pedals. The pedals you plug your guitar and they make it do different stuff. They're like $200, $300, you know, that's around what they are. And guitar players are addicted to buying them because we're just too lazy to get better at playing guitar. It's kind of true. So, no, it's not true. We need to stay excited. They're like, the pedals are like steroids. Like, you're juicing if you buy a new pedal. You know what I mean, guitar players? Like, I'm juicing. And then there's this thing like you buy the pedal, you're like, the pedal hasn't arrived yet, I don't have to play guitar. I'll play guitar when the pedal arrives. It's like just pushing shit off. I'll sing that demo when the new microphone comes, but it's back ordered. Like all different ways to put off doing work. This guy's like, you know, I'm in your head. So I was buying thousands of dollars worth of pedals. The FedEx guy every day was like, what are you ordering? I'm like, pedals. Also, I don't know why I'm being so honest with my FedEx guy. Get out of here, FedEx. You go around asking people what's in their boxes. What's wrong with you? It's not true, but for the purposes of this story, the FedEx guy had a problem with this. And at the very, very end of saying to myself, this is disgusting. I have a wall full of pedals. And I had thousands of dollars worth of pedals. And the last pedal I plugged in, it did this. It's reverb. And I went like this. And that song made me enough money to buy me thousands of dollars of pedals.
You know, maybe it'll inspire you to make more videos or more articles, like in my case. So gear and the buying and selling of it is a big part of being a musician and a guitar player, at least in my view. By the way, if you're looking for something to practice, I recommend learning the triads all over the neck. You can go to travelingguitarist.com/fretboard cheat sheet. That's where you're going to find my triads document. And it's also great for memorization of the fretboard via the octave mapping technique, and also just learning where the root notes are for each triad. I've been learning this for 6 to 8 months, and I recommend getting it if you want to learn the same thing. There are some things I need to try out yet too, which Rhett Shull pointed out in his video, which is that you can use different mics at the same time for one amplifier to create a much bigger sound. So maybe on the one side of the amplifier speaker, you have a Shure SM57, and then on the other side of the amp speaker, you have a Rode NT1. And this is something that I haven't experimented with too often. Like, I've used an SM57 and had it from left to right in the center, and then pulled it back far away from the amp. But I've actually never really used multiple mics on one amp, simply because my audio interface only warrants 2. So upgrading my audio interface, I think, is a big priority at this point. And maybe getting a rack audio interface, like I mentioned in my guitar pedal video. But with all that talk, one solution I found, which I also pointed out in my little Black Amp box video, is that you can use a volume attenuator in your amp's effects loop. And that was another reason why I got the Orange 35 RT, is because I wanted to have the volume a bit lower. So that worked perfectly. That worked perfectly for a short while, but at the end of the day, I think it would have been much better to have a 5-watt amp. And these days, I'm actually using an EQ pedal. I'm using the EQ pedal in the effects loop, and I think that's giving me the attenuation that I need, while also kind of acting as a cool additional EQ control. I think I have the Blackstar, the HT-5R in my cart right now. And it's definitely something I'm going to look into in the future. Will I get rid of my orange amp that I got on Tomin or however you say it? I don't know. I probably won't, but we'll end up seeing how it goes. But I think a 5-watt amp is going to be a solution to many of my problems.